Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. Today's guest is Schuyler Diehm from the Early Risers Movement. We have a really great interview here lined up for you. We actually have a lot of similarities in how we started things. We struggled, we tried to make a quick buck before we focused on adding value. And then he's going to talk about how he's kind of shifted a little bit in his approach to his audience and how he has a podcast and has been growing a loyal following. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy this episode. I will put all the links that we talk about in the description of the show notes so that you can refer to them. And without further ado, here's the podcast. Schuyler Diehm, welcome to the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. So great to have you, man.
Thank you for having me, Chris. Appreciate it.
I know we were actually just recently introduced by a mutual friend, Brett. So shout out to Brett. Thanks for connecting us. Schuyler and I have had very similar stories, and I think our audience is really going to enjoy your story and think that there's a lot of similarities as well from what you mentioned in the takeaways and everything that we talk about.
Definitely, man. Yeah, I'm excited to get into it for sure.
I like to start off with the origin story and just see what was your background? Where did you come from? Like, where'd you grow up? You can feel free to go into as much detail or as little detail as you like.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in a small town in New Jersey. Shout out Jersey. Living in Connecticut now, but I was basically in like a very small suburb, really nice town, very God-focused parents. So, I grew up kind of always in the Christian realm, going to church. And my parents really, really loved me, but at the same time, they kind of sheltered me. So I grew up like a pretty insecure kid. My mom always gave me that confidence, like, you're awesome, you can do anything. And then when you hit the real world, it's kind of like, okay, well, is that really true? So going through that, I was really, really insecure. And to kind of combat that insecurity, I started hitting the weight room because it's something I had seen my dad do when I was little. He was always up at like 4:30 in the morning working out, because he was just a really, really busy guy going to work, and just, he had an awesome work ethic, which I looked up to. So I started going to the weight room, fell in love with it, like over the course of, man, I've been working out for like probably 10 years now, just like absolutely love weightlifting. And, while that's awesome, and while I was able to craft my physique, it didn't really do much for my confidence. So I was still kind of really, really self-conscious. I struggled with social anxiety in high school, and there's a lot that kind of held me back from breaking free of the mold. Like, I was the person who kind of wanted to go with the flow with everything, just wanted to fit in. And it wasn't until I graduated from college where I kind of had like this awakening, as like most people do who are at this point in their life. And the realization is like, I don't have to fit in with the crowd. I started a full-time accounting job, and I kind of looked around, and I saw people who weren't really happy, but who were kind of just showing up to work every day. And, looking around and seeing those people, I was like, I'm definitely destined for more. Like, I'm not the person to settle. Like, I have a strong work ethic. Like, as anyone who goes to the gym knows, you kind of craft your mindset when you lift weights.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, definitely. And so I made the decision to quit that job and start my own business. And I'd worked on the business while I was still working at the job, and I was trying to put things together. And, I thought I had this revolutionary idea that would change the world, which obviously, that's never how it works out.
We always think that when we jump ship.
Exactly. Yeah. But basically my whole thing was, the summer after I graduated college, I had about 3 months until I started that accounting job. And for those 3 months, I kind of fell into like a pretty bad slump. I was, enjoying my last free summer as a free man. And I was staying up late. I was waking up later. And even though I was still going to the gym at like 3:30 in the afternoon, I was still, for the rest of the day, like doing nothing. Like, I would wake up at 10, 11, noon. I would go grab like a bagel or eggs or a bowl of cereal or something. And then I would lay on my couch for the rest of the day, and then go to the gym, come home, lay on my couch, or spend time with friends. And getting in that routine kind of puts you in a state where like you just can't get motivated. And, I wanted to do more. I wanted to be productive because I hated just laying on the couch all day. I was super bored all the time, super exhausted, lethargic. But when you're in that routine, like it doesn't really, it's tough to break free from. Like, you lack that motivation to kickstart your journey. So thankfully, when I started my full-time accounting job, like, I saw how much a routine changed things for me. And basically through seeing that, I started discovering more about like the power of how you structure your day. And like, it sounds like common sense, but to me, it was never something I'd stumbled upon. And then I started doing more and more research and basically fell on this idea of like how you set up your day based on your nighttime routine, based on your morning routine, has such a powerful effect on the rest of your day. Like if you wake up and you do nothing for the first hour, you're setting yourself up for a less productive day, even though like it doesn't really seem like it. But what I discovered through that is like having a strong morning routine and doing things that kind of get you in a positive physical and mental state will revolutionize the rest of your day. It'll change your mindset like over the course of weeks and months. It will change your physical just health, your mental health, like, and yeah, so that's what I stumbled upon. That's kind of my main message that I love to bring to the world, and it's what I'm working on kind of building right now. And that was kind of a lot about me. I've never really talked about myself for that long, but yeah, that's Schuyler 101.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And I can attest to the fact that getting into a routine, just thinking back to my college years, I remember I beat the whole Halo 4 campaign or something in one sitting. I spent 5 hours on the couch with my roommate. The only time I got off the couch was to go to the restroom or get a beer or something like that.
Yeah.
And now to think of even doing a day like that ever again, I feel too guilty if I spend 5 hours doing something that's kind of a waste of time, even if it's fun. Everything in moderation, right? Your story sounds so much like mine. I'm just like, gosh, we can just interchange the names. I had a corporate job. I looked around, I saw people weren't happy, and I did not see myself just settling and staying there for the paycheck. Thank you so much for sharing that. And you alluded to starting your own business, and I want to talk about the early risers movement. And if you could just define the term early riser, I've listened to several of your episodes now. I subscribed to you, and now you start popping up, so it auto plays. Very good content, I have to
Awesome.
say. Everybody on my podcast, go check out Schuylers as well.
Appreciate it.
And if you could just define the term early riser for us and then talk about the movement and about your business.
Yeah. So, when most people hear early riser, they think, okay, you got to wake up by like 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. or maybe you have to be up before the sun. But to me, early riser is kind of like a looser term, and it really means just waking up earlier than you have to. So like there could be people out there who wake up at 4 a.m. and immediately go to work. And for me, like it doesn't really, it doesn't really make sense to call that person an early riser, even though of course they are. But for me, it's really about what you do with that time. And it's using that time every morning for uninterrupted personal development. So like if you wake up at 9 a.m. right now to get to work, for a lot of people that sounds late. But if you decide to just wake up at 8:30 and for those 30 minutes do something that benefits you, you're an early riser. And like on the same thing, like you have night shift workers who can't really call themselves early risers because they're up at like 8 p.m. But if they wake up 30 minutes earlier and they use that time to benefit themselves, I'd call them an early riser. So the reason of the name behind the company is like seeing the large change I've made in my own life and how I've impacted some of the people around me by waking up early and by having that morning routine. It's kind of like it's a message that I want to get out to the world because I truly see what being selfish can do for you. I know we live in like the culture where everyone's kind of always looking at other people. Like even if it's just, okay, well, what do other people think of me? Like that's still focusing on other people. And like what I found just through the past few years of personal growth and self-development is if you can shift that focus from other people to yourself and how can you benefit yourself, in a way, like you impact other people while doing that because people see you making a change. People see you being happier, healthier, and they kind of say, well, okay, like I want to do that because, no one likes someone coming at you and like pointing their finger in your face and saying, all right, you have to do this to be happy. You have to do this to be successful. Like, that's why so many of us rebel from our parents. It's like, we like the idea of deciding for ourselves what we want to do.
Right.
So like, the best thing you can do if you want to help other people is just set an example yourself. So yeah, that's the name Early Risers. Like it's all about every single day making consistent steps forward and developing yourself so you can impact other people.
I love that. That's such a good answer. And like you said, it's got to be a decision that we make for ourselves because people have to want to change. You can give them advice all the time, but if they don't want it, they're not going to take it. It's not until, I think Tony Robbins mentions this, when you decide you're literally kind of committing to the process, and pain usually drives that, right? Pain of standing still or complacency or the lethargic feeling on the couch. you knew that there was something more that you wanted to do. And I think that helps push past that point of mediocrity.
Definitely. And yeah, I mean, for me, like the switch wasn't quick. Like, especially waking up at 10 a.m., 11 a.m., noon, like I was the night owl. Like I wasn't a morning person.
Right.
And
A
so
lot
when
of
I
people
started
use that
that,
excuse.
exactly, I
I'm not
hear
a
it
morning
all the
person.
time, man, all the time. Like just ever since starting this, so many people have said that to me. And like, the idea is like when I first started my full-time job and when I started waking up earlier and I wanted to go to the gym before work, like it took me a long time to get adjusted. Like it wasn't like, okay, I decided to, I was waking up at 8 a.m. So let me start waking up at 6 to go to the gym and everything was smooth sailing. Like that just didn't work out. I was, tired on a lot of days. A lot of days I was hitting snooze 5 or 6 times. A lot of days I was just pressing my alarm forward all together and just going back to sleep. Like
Mhm.
the transition is slow, but when you cage yourself in that box of I'm a night owl or I'm not a morning person, you do yourself a disservice because you're not allowing yourself to change. And that's what humans do. Like we can literally change.
Right. We can decide and then take action. And the funny thing, too, I'm sure you realize this, is the earlier you wake up, the earlier you're going to fall asleep because it's a long day when you wake up at 4 or 5. And people always ask me, how do you wake up so early? And I'm like, because I'm so tired. I fall asleep by 9:30 or 10, and then I
Yeah.
wake up automatically by 5. So it
Yeah.
works out. You adjust your schedule. But that's so true. Thank you for sharing that.
Of
Um,
course, man.
so I wanted to transition and just see what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced so far. I know we talked about the shiny object syndrome when we first started, and was there anything else, or was that one of your biggest issues that you dealt with when starting off?
I think the biggest thing was just having this idea for some reason that if I put something together that is awesome, like it's just going to be a huge success.
Hmm.
Which sucks, but like we're a lot of us, I was raised just being told you're awesome, like you're amazing, you can do whatever. And
Same here. My mom thought I
yeah,
was the coolest.
exactly. And like she wasn't lying. She definitely did think, that we were the coolest, but at the end of the day, that's kind of creating an unrealistic lens for life. So like for me, when I put together my first product, which wasn't good, by the way, but like I thought it was good, and no one came to it, it made me question like everything. And that is kind of tough. Like when you build this confidence based off the idea that like you're awesome in every way. Um, but at the same time, it was super necessary. And I think like, I mean, this goes for really anyone, like any of the struggles that you mentioned, really saying like, okay, this is what I struggled with, that is going to teach you something in some way. As long as you like take a pause, you take a stop, take a breath and think about it, like that is going to be one of your biggest teachers. But I think like that was the biggest one, like adjusting to the entrepreneurship space. Cause I went to school for accounting. I never had the entrepreneurship mindset.
Right.
Um, but switching over to that, yeah, like the biggest thing was, okay, there's a lot more to it than just putting something together that's awesome. Like it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort. There's like a lot more that goes into it.
And even now you're building a movement and a community on social media. And I think we had both talked about this on our last call, is that we shifted from trying to make a quick buck to giving that free value before we focus on selling anything. So that's kind of where I am too with the podcast. I'm just having great guests on like yourself, and I don't even really have a product to sell yet. I'm working on getting something that makes sense with the message, but I think you're a little further ahead than I am in terms of really defining your community and building loyal following and all that. I'm kind of still crafting that message. So props to you for really diving in there. And I see if you want to talk about your book on the back shelf as well,
Yeah, this little
go
guy.
right ahead, man. I'd love to talk about that as well.
Yeah, well, first I appreciate that, Chris. Like that's awesome to hear, and we're definitely on a similar journey, and like we're gonna be doing some awesome stuff. But yeah, so behind me is my first ever workbook that I wrote. It's called the Snooze Stopper, and it's definitely in line with my message about waking up early and starting your day on a positive note. And one of the main habits that I overcame that really helped me shift my mindset was stopping pressing the snooze button. I was like a total snooze addict when I was younger. Like if I had to press or if I had to get up, if I had to set an alarm, I would press snooze like 4 or 5, 6 times, like every single morning. Most people do that without a thought. Like it's just, oh, okay, I'm just going to press snooze. But there are consequences that come with it. And there are things that are affecting your confidence, your energy levels, like all these different things that if you press snooze right when you wake up, you are subconsciously setting yourself up for a worse day. Like you're teaching yourself procrastination. You're allowing your body to go back into a deeper sleep. So the next time it wakes up, you're more tired and less focused. So that workbook there is, for the course of like 6 months, I tried to stop pressing snooze pretty unsuccessfully. And it was just kind of layer by layer. I just built these techniques to avoid pressing the snooze button. So in the workbook, like I go more into detail about the science behind your energy levels and mindset when you press snooze. And then I also laid out a pretty cool framework where you're hacking your environment, your logic, and your emotions. All so they help you wake up on that first alarm and start your day on a better note. So yeah, so a lot of cool techniques in there, a lot of things picked up from different people, a lot of things discovered myself, but I wanted to basically compile it into one workbook for people who struggled waking up in the morning and who wanted to start getting up without the snooze button.
That's awesome. And I think we're both talking about the Miracle Morning as well, and how that book really changed our morning routine and our life. Really, it changed my life, that's for sure, because I immediately started implementing a routine after reading that book. And of course, we can take pieces from here and there. I've learned a lot since then, and sometimes I switch around my routine. But having a workbook or something like that, or a physical book, is so helpful in actually implementing the steps in there, because it's one thing to listen to an audiobook or a podcast while you're driving. It tells you to do something. You're like, yeah, that sounds cool. And then you get stuck at a red light, or you almost get hit by a car, and that other idea goes completely out of your brain. So it's very important, people check out the snooze stopper and listen to Schuyler's message and really take action on changing your morning routines.
Appreciate it. Yeah. And
Quick shout out for you there.
yeah, no, definitely. That's awesome. And like I said, like it's a pretty cool framework, and it's something that I grabbed from another book. But when it comes to the Miracle Morning, like that opened up my world to morning routines. Because I was a meathead. Like I love lifting weights, and I basically wanted to go to the gym before work, and that was all it started as.
Right. It was
But
just a
then
morning workout, not really a routine, right? Not
exactly,
self-development.
exactly, and then when I read that book, it was like, whoa, like this is possible. Like how you start your day actually has an effect on the rest of your day, and like things started to make more sense after that. So really good book.
Absolutely. And I had never taken the time to read every single day. Now I spend 20 minutes reading every morning. And while I may be a slow reader and I only read 5 or 10 pages sometimes, it's still 5 or 10 pages that I wouldn't have read. So I think it's extremely powerful. I know it's
Exactly.
extremely powerful. So,
Definitely, yeah. And reading's one of my big things for my nighttime routine too. Like before bed, I love reading. It just,
yeah.
it's just a great way to end the day. So
And I know it's also good to step away from blue light and things like that for people who are watching television right before bed. Those rays and the blue light from the TV affects your ability to fall asleep quickly. So I'm not sure if you have any of those like Blu-ray blocking
I
lenses. I
do,
don't.
yeah.
You have some of those? I need to get some. I've been turning my phone on that yellow screen mode, the nighttime mode, and I try to stop watching TV and I get off the computer at least 30 minutes to an hour before bed. So I can see how the reading is very helpful to take your eyes away from the screen.
Yeah, that's like a big, big thing I'm an advocate of. Like we're so connected to each other through technology, and we're always looking at screens, but taking some time to disconnect at night is so healthy. Like not
Yeah.
just for your hormones, but just for your mind too. Like disconnect a little bit, like relax, let go, so you can, fall asleep faster, get better sleep, and even just, get your mind right for the next day.
Yeah. Some people end the day scrolling through social media and then they start their next day off doing the same thing, just feeding their mind with distractions and things. And there's a lot of cool things that you can see on there and updates and friends and family. But it's so important to disconnect from time to time and just take time for yourself. When you're meditating and you just unplug completely, for example, that is the most peaceful feeling to me, because I can feel like I get a break from the problems or the challenges I'm dealing with. And then you come back to them and you realize that you thought through some things while you were meditating, that really the problems aren't even that bad.
Definitely. Yeah. And I mean, even with problems with social media, like with anything, a lot of us, like, we feel like we have to focus on it all the time. But when you
Yeah.
force yourself to step away a little bit, you realize, like, basically, like you said, like, wow, this is kind of nice. It's like, it's a little escape.
Yeah, the world doesn't end if I don't update my social media every day. Who
Exactly.
would have thought? So I know you also have a podcast. I wanted to shift gears and talk about that a little bit. I took a look on iTunes, and like I mentioned, I listened through several of them, and I like to go and listen to the best of the podcast
Mm.
because it gives you a good indication of what iTunes ranks to be your best. And I think it looks like your first episode was dropped last year, January 31st, 2018. Is that right?
Yep, that's right.
Awesome. So, how have you enjoyed the podcasting journey, and what have you learned so far going through it? Because I know we don't start off as podcast professionals.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, podcasting journey in general has been amazing. I'm always looking for ways to kind of push my comfort zone a little bit. And
Mhm.
back a year ago, it was like ridiculous to even think about recording my voice and letting other people hear it. So
Let
just
alone
starting
video,
that,
right?
yeah. Oh man, when I switched over to video, it was like 10 times just more uncomfortable. But it was a really, really good experience. And I think that it was a good learning experience for me just in terms of like what I am capable of, coming back to again, just doing something that makes me super uncomfortable. Um, but it's also been a really good experience because it just helps me network with amazing individuals. Like I don't know if we would have met if we didn't have each other on our podcast. Like we may have
Yeah.
talked a little bit and then kind of just moved on with our day. But yeah, I get to meet like some awesome, awesome people. Not only that, but interviewing people on my podcast, like we talked, I get to learn some awesome stuff. Like your backpack tip was like revolutionary for me. So
Thank
awesome.
you. And
Yeah.
for those who don't know, the backpack tip is to take a backpack with you with your necessary things in there. I talk about like an iPad or a book, some snacks, some water. So no matter what you get caught up in, oil change or traffic, you can always veer off the road and get some work done while you wait for those things to settle down. So thank you for the backpack tip shout out.
Of course, of course. Yeah, but just bringing on awesome like-minded people who are pushing the boundaries in their own lives and getting to learn from them has been really, really cool. And I think just as far as what I've learned, um, a lot, just in terms of what the guests bring, really like just understanding people's perspectives and understanding how they live life more effectively and what they do every day and how they're making a difference.
I've noticed the same thing. And a lot of podcasts that I listen to and that I look up to mention that, hey, I'm asking this for selfish reasons. What's your Facebook ad strategy? And they're trying to also learn, but it also provides value to the audience, of course. But the host gets to be a little selfish in that they get to ask questions that they're kind of struggling with too sometimes.
Mm.
But it's so powerful to meet with like-minded people. I think I had did a little Instagram story picture when you were showing me your vision board, and I was just like, man, I love meeting like-minded people.
Yeah, I saw that. It's
Because
awesome.
a lot of friends and people that I deal with, they don't have a vision board. They don't have a morning routine. I can't really talk to them as much about it. So whenever I meet people who are in that same on that same path, we can just have so much more in common and so much more to talk about than just our mean boss that we don't like at work at a job that we hate.
Exactly. And it's like how else would you meet those types of people? Like you could spend a couple hundred, maybe even that couple $1,000s to attend some seminars, um, and networking online. But again, like having a keyboard conversation isn't really as impactful as seeing a person face to face, talking to them for 30 minutes to an hour. And yeah, it's a really, really powerful way to network as well.
And it's a great way to just build a relationship because, like you
Hmm.
said, emails can be misinterpreted. There's so many, even email marketing. I keep hearing that email marketing is kind of dying or slowing down because I get 100 emails a day sometimes from different people I'm subscribed to their lists. And I love the content at times. That's why I subscribe, but it's just so overwhelming. I can't really get to it all. Whereas if you have a call like this, where we do a quick little, even a phone call, you can get so much more done in 10 minutes than if you were to do 100 emails.
Definitely. 100%.
Yeah. So, did you have anything else you want to share with the audience? Any motivation, any tips, any hacks? Kind of like a freebie session, whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the biggest changes that I've made in my life since starting my morning routine has been adding gratitude to it. I don't know how much, if you've talked about this at all, Chris. I'm sure people have heard it out there, but if you haven't, gratitude is like an amazing, amazing way to start the day. And it's not just, saying, oh, I'm so thankful for this, I'm so thankful for this, but it's actually feeling and
Mhm.
picking out the things that you wouldn't normally think about. Like right now, like it's really easy for me to say, oh, I'm so thankful to have met you. I'm so thankful for my bed because I'm looking at it right now. But like taking some time to really think about, okay, what things do I normally take for granted that have been able to improve my life? And it would be like a big difference if I didn't have them in my life. Like things having to do with your senses. Like what if I couldn't see, hear? What if I couldn't walk? What if I couldn't speak? Like anything on that end. And then you have, obviously your physical objects, your possessions, you have experiences. Like there's so many things that we take for granted on a day-to-day basis. And it's not a bad thing, right? Because you can't constantly be aware of everything going on around you. But what gratitude does is it takes this little part of the brain called the RAS, and it helps. Basically what that part is responsible for is filtering out things that you don't need. Like I said, like you can't acknowledge everything around you. So if you are, looking in front of you and I tell you to pick out something red that you see, and then you find it, I tell you to close your eyes, and then I ask you, okay, well, tell me about something that was brown. Like you're not really going to be able to pick up on that because the RAS filtered it out because all you were caring about was red, or green or whatever I said. But basically
Red.
when you do, yeah, it
You
was
said
red.
red.
Okay. So basically when you do gratitude, it filters the RAS, and the RAS starts to pick up more things that make you happy. So it's not just you're putting yourself in that good mood, but you're literally training your brain to find the things in your life to make you more happy and peaceful. And so like people will start practicing gratitude and they'll say, wow, like my life has improved so much these past few months. But in reality, maybe the life didn't even change that much. Maybe it was just you were picking up these things that you never really noticed before. So that's my quick hack. I love just talking on gratitude in general because it has made me a lot more positive. It's made me a lot more grateful, really enjoying life in general. And that's something that I really think everyone could use, even if it's literally just waking up and for 5 minutes, like setting your alarm back 5 minutes or just pressing snooze one time less and using that extra time to just practice gratitude.
I'm grateful that you brought that up because that's one thing that I struggled with as well, just the gratitude part. I typed in YouTube gratitude videos and then you just repeat after people like, I'm thankful for this, I'm thankful for my eyes. But until you really feel it and you realize that, yes, these things we take for granted. For example, when you get sick and you have a sore throat or you have an eye infection or whatever it is, then you start to realize how awesome it was to not have those things. And so I think it's very important to be grateful for, having two eyes, two hands, 2 feet. And not everyone has that, of course, but we do have so much more than we think that we do. Obviously, there's people who are better off than us. They have nicer cars, bigger houses. You can always look at it from that perspective, but we're also so fortunate to be where we are now because there's several others that are in tougher situations all across the world.
Definitely. Yeah. And just for people who like don't really know where to start because it is a lot, like where do I start? What I'd recommend is just taking out a piece of paper and a pen and just writing down 3 things every morning. And if you need guidance, like if you don't want to repeat the same thing over and over, I'd say the first thing, make it like a big thing, something that is pretty obvious. Like I said, like I have a bed, I have a place to stay, I have this awesome computer. The second thing, make it a small thing. So something you don't normally think about. So maybe it was just like, oh, the breeze in my face when I go for a run, like the warmth of the sunshine when I'm walking outside. And then the third thing is just an experience. And it could be something good. It could be something bad that taught you something good, but just something you've went through. And just some other quick hacks really quick. Tune into your senses. So think about everything you can see, hear, touch, taste, whatever I'm missing. We know what the senses are,
Smell.
hopefully. Smell, yeah. Go through those senses and what they offer you in your life. And then a nice little challenge is to pick out some bad things and try to spin it and see how you can be grateful for it.
That sounds like a challenge.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
thank you
helpful
for
though.
those tips. That's really awesome. I'm going to listen to this again and then do those tips because I have not done gratitude to the extent that I'd like to. I'm kind of still on that newbie level where I'm like, I'm thankful for the new day. I'm thankful for these opportunities. I'm thankful for this real estate lead that I got.
Right.
So thank
Yeah.
you for those tips.
Of course, man.
Was there anything else at all you wanted to mention before I tell our listeners, how to find you? We can share your contact info, and I'll be sure to link it all up in the show notes as well.
Yeah. So I'm really big on practical advice, and we've talked about a lot today. So my big thing is just like pick one thing that you want to work on. Like I can't stand, and it's happened to me so many times where you get super, super excited and you want to change everything. So you kill it for like a week and then you go back to your normal routine. So just like pick one thing that you want to work on. Maybe it's gratitude, maybe it's a nighttime routine, and just focus on it for the next few weeks. And then from there, when you get adjusted, like that's when you can start moving forward. So be practical about it, like be rational, don't get too excited and act on emotion. And yeah, pick that one thing.
That's a really great hack, I have to say. And if you even get one thing out of a book or a podcast and you implement it, I think Hal Elrod in The Miracle Morning mentions, even if you do a 6-minute morning routine and you only read one page, what if you get something out of that page that changes your business for the better or changes the course of your day? So take one thing, that's the message for you all today. One thing from this episode that you really got of value and implement it today. Don't wait.
Awesome.
So where can our listeners find you, man? I want to, send people back over to your site and give you some of that love from our audience, because we have very similar messages, and probably we're gonna have a lot of podcasts that we talk about the same things on. But it's interesting to see our spin on it, because you may focus on one part that I may have overlooked, because I have talked about gratitude, but not quite in the ways that you have. So yeah, where can our listeners find you, Schuyler?
Yeah, I am pretty much everywhere. So Instagram is where I'm most active. That's at Early Risers Movement. You can check out my website, just see what I'm doing at earlyrisersmovement.com. Or if you would like to connect on Facebook, because I'm also really active on Facebook. I have a great Facebook group there, but you can find me at Schuyler Diehm, which if you're listening, you're definitely going to need to check the spelling before you look that up. But
Very unique name.
thank you. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Schuyler, for being on the show and for sharing your massive value add today. Our audience is definitely going to love it. And I hope we can do this again in the future and talk about the growth and everything between our podcasts and our businesses. And definitely look forward to keeping in touch with you. And listeners, don't be strangers. Reach out, send us some love. Follow Schuyler on his podcast and on his Instagram and other social media handles.
Yeah. Thanks, Kristen. Thank you to everybody. This is awesome. And like you said, I'd love to reconnect in a couple months, couple of years, see how we're doing.
Sounds good, Schuyler. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Well, that wraps up today's episode. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed talking to Schuyler. Again, go give him a like, a follow. I'll link up all of his social media handles in the description, and go check out his website, earlyrisersmovement.com. I'm also going to be on his show as well, so keep an eye out for whenever that releases. I'll go ahead and update everybody on my Instagram and whatnot. You can follow me at chrisbello09. That is my Instagram handle. Or find me on Facebook. Just look up Chris Bello, and I have a page on there as well. Thank you all, and see you all in the next episode.